Stand by for broadcast.
You're listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations.
Hello, I'm Flight Lieutenant Peter Lisney, and in this episode we go on board HMS Queen Elizabeth and hear from 617 Squadron as they return to the UK. We'll also reheat a few stories, just in case you missed them, but first, see if you can identify this noise. Find out if you're right at the end of this episode. Now, after 7 months at sea, the carrier strike group is back. HMS Queen Elizabeth sailed into Portsmouth Harbour a day after its F-35s arrived home at RAF Marham. Later, we'll hear from their station commander, but to begin, we visit the carrier while it was still at sea.
Coming back to land on a small piece of floating steel, but at night in sometimes reasonably bad weather with not a huge amount of fuel to play with, certainly focuses the mind.
Do your pre-deployment phys. Those ladders are steep and they come thick and fast on a daily basis. So you all come away with good quads and good glutes, which every good physio loves to see.
This has been a decade in conception. It falls on the back of what was Joint Force Harrier. It's now the Lightning Force. We don't even use the word joint in the title. There's no need to.
Welcome along to this special edition of the RAF podcast Inside Air, featuring CSG 21, also known as FORTIS. My name's Squadron Leader Stu Campbell. I'm one of the pilots on 617 Squadron and have been embarked in Queen Elizabeth for the last 7 months. Thank you for joining us. Could you just introduce who you are?
Hello, my name is Commander Mark Sparrow, Officer Commanding 617 Squadron.
Commander Sparrow, could I just ask, what has been the role of 617 Squadron within the CSG, and how do you feel it's contributed to the overall mission?
So 617 is the UK's only frontline F-35B squadron at the moment, and we provide the strike element of the carrier strike group. So it's been a fantastic opportunity to, having done all the workups in the previous year, we did group sail back in 2020 as preparation for coming on Op Fortis. And that's allowed us to, over the last 6 months, provide that strike element for the carrier in a variety of countries, in a variety of scenarios, including on operations.
How has the F-35 performed in different parts of the world and climate?
It's performed fantastically. The biggest challenge has been operating from an aircraft carrier, with all the environmental impacts that has on the aircraft, but the aircraft's held up really well. And predominantly this deployment's been in hot climates, so we've gone from the UK through the Mediterranean in the summer all the way out to the Far East through monsoon season, typhoon seasons out there, and come back again. We've worked with multiple countries, and we've managed to support every single exercise and DV event that has been required of us. So the jet's held up really well. We've learned a huge amount though. Operating 5th generation platforms from sea presents unique challenges, but from that we've also achieved a huge amount of learning.
So during Op Fortis, has the F-35 managed to integrate with other aircraft from different forces throughout the world?
Absolutely. Ever since we left the UK, we have interoperated through exercises with multiple nations, from the French and the Italians in the Mediterranean, the Israeli Air Force, which was a unique opportunity. We've worked with the Japanese, the South Koreans, the Singaporeans and the Indian Air Force. So a huge variety of aircraft and capabilities, but it's proved our interoperability with our partners, not least the Americans, so with the US Marine Corps being on board, but we've also interoperated with 3 carriers when we were out in the Pacific, so working with the US Navy and their F-35s and F-18s.
Could you sum up the performance of the squadron personnel during the deployment?
It's been fantastic. I'm hugely proud of everybody on the squadron. So to go away for such a prolonged period of time, and not just go away on an aircraft carrier, which is not in everybody's comfort zone and not something that we've done for a huge amount of time as a UK defence. But the whole squadron have stood up really well to the challenge. from the pilots to the engineers to the support staff to mission support flight to the intelligence flight, and they've all contributed something not just within the squadron but actually to the wider carrier strike group, which has been hugely pleasing to see.
So could you tell us some of the lessons that you'll be taking back to the Lightning Force in the UK?
Yeah, so we've obviously learnt an immense amount about operating from aircraft carriers. We had, prior to embarking on the deployment, learnt significant lessons, but these 6-7 months have taught us not just the physical flying from the aircraft carrier, but actually the management of personnel on the aircraft carrier, how we go about operating from the deck, how our engineers operate on a daily basis. We'll be taking back to Marham. I think it's probably given the whole Lightning Force an amount of confidence in the ability of the aircraft, but also in the ability of what we can provide as a force as a whole, not just 617 Squadron, but the entire Lightning Force.
So a lot of the listeners will be aware of the recent incident with the loss of an F-35. Is it possible, Commander Sparrow, that you can comment on that at this time?
At this stage, I can't talk precisely about details. We can't talk about the aircraft incident whilst the investigation is ongoing, so that is a process that is going through at the moment. But what I can say is we managed to get back to flying within 48 hours of the accident happening, which is testament to the whole squadron and how they pulled together to get us back in the air again.
Claire, can you tell me a little bit about your role on board Queen Elizabeth?
Hi, yes, thanks for having me. Flight Lieutenant Claire Crichton, RAF physiotherapist. So I am an individual augmentee as part of a forward rehab team working on FORTIS. I predominantly work within Role 1 Med Facility. So what does that mean? I'm an RAF physiotherapist covering the whole task group, offering primary care rehab to all personnel, including civilians and foreign military PERS. I have LPT Sue, who is my ERI, naval ERI, who works with me to provide this service. Being RAF, there's also a requirement to offer all squadrons on board air crew conditioning programme, which is a flying-related, predominantly neck pain recognised requirement to prevent injuries as best as we can to allow optimal flying ability. We also provide direct access for all personnel, but mainly for our squadrons, so they can immediately access care and maintain, like I say, their flying capabilities.
So my role on board is as a strike fighter pilot flying the F-35. We provide the strike group with long-range strike, including 6 different mission sets by day and night. We've been involved in operational flying throughout the deployment and also taking part in exercises from UK waters all the way across to the Pacific and back again. Our day-to-day routine on board is much the same as on land. Our mission planning, etc., is identical. Indeed, the only thing that is significantly different is really takeoff and landing, which after a month or so on board becomes relatively second nature. Claire, how would you say that your job has differed on board to your normal role back on a station?
Yeah, absolutely. So you do have to adapt in some areas, mainly that the floor moves, which makes sometimes assessing patients quite hard, which is something I hadn't really considered. But generally the med centre works the same way as it would do on a firm base, and so nothing really changes there. Obviously, what we call rooms or compartments, the space is a little limited, the ceiling's a little lower, but it is just about adapting and modifying practice as best we can while still providing the service. The Navy speak is hard to get my head round generally, but no significant differences really.
From an F-35 operational point of view, the deployment has been incredibly successful. We have proven the jet both operationally and significantly more in exercises across the globe, specifically operating with other F-35s from partner nations, including Italy, Israel, Japan, the US Navy, the US Air Force, and of course the US Marine Corps that are on board with us. It's actually gone relatively quickly as well, because we've been travelling the globe with lots of highlights to look forward to. It really has broken down into fairly short chunks with quite exciting things to look forward to during that period. Claire, you joined us in Guam, so around about 6 weeks ago, I think. How do you feel it's gone since then for you?
Yep, I am what they call a half tripper. I took over from my predecessor, Squadron Leader Joanna McGill, in September. This is my first time at sea, but to be part of such a massive ship and such a great adventure, really, it's just been a fabulous experience. The fact that I've been part of the Navy's biggest venture in sort of up to 40 years is pretty cool. There have been ups and downs, but generally the camaraderie and the ability just to crack on and provide the service has been pretty seamless, and loved it, yeah.
So one of the next questions people have asked us is, what has been the most challenging thing for us to experience during FORTIS? And for me, it's that adaptation to becoming a maritime fighter pilot when my experience has all been on land up until now. And operating around the ship definitely brings significant challenges, and you have to up your game for departure and recovery, especially at night when taxiing around the upper deck is almost entirely done in the pitch dark. So really, just becoming that maritime aviator has taken a lot of concentration. Claire, from your perspective, what has been most challenging for you?
Yep, thanks. The for me, on a personal level, the lack of fresh air is a bit of a challenge. So obviously, being from Scotland, I'm a country girl and a massive fan of the outdoors. And there are some days where, because of operational requirements, you haven't got access to the outdoors. But I think it's been really important to sort of programme that in and have it as a priority as and when the opportunities arose. So yeah, so sort of being inside has been a bit of a personal challenge. Professionally, like any other days on an operation, the days are long. But the fact that there's a embarked physio on board is a relatively new concept. So there's been an awful lot of feat finding and service design to be sort of produced and thought about, along with the daily clinical care requirements, as you would expect in the med facility.
So the highlights of the trip for me have been quite widely spread. It has been fantastic to see different parts of the world, albeit with some COVID restrictions in place at various port stops. But ultimately, as a pilot, I have to say the biggest highlight has been the flying that we've been able to do with different allies across the globe, and just to increase our capability and experience as aviators. Claire, what would you say the highlight has been for you?
Well, I have to say this, but I do mean it. The jets have been incredible to watch. I think that everyone knows about sort of way back the Harrier jump jets, and being from a bit of an RAF family, that was quite often a topic of conversation as a young child. But to see the future generation F-35Bs land and take off on a ship is just incredible. It's really kind of a bit of a kind of hold your breath and watch moment. So that's definitely been my highlight.
The deployment has definitely developed me as a pilot. I have just over 3,000 hours now, but of those 3,000, only about 150 from a carrier, and I would say that they have been some of the most challenging of my career. Coming back to land on a small piece of floating steel, but at night in sometimes reasonably bad weather, with not a huge amount of fuel to play with, certainly focuses the mind and definitely develops all the pilots embarked, whether that's fixed wing or rotary wing. Over to you, Claire, for how you feel it's developed you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's more that broader military tri-service knowledge. I think, going away, being in a slightly different environment, you'll always have your eyes open, but there's such a broad mix on board. It's just been such a great educational sort of experience for me, and certainly my naval understanding clearly has rocketed. It's just reignited that flame that sometimes just settles down when you're back in the firm base and coming out on ops. It just sets it off again, which has been fab.
So for all those Lightning Force colleagues and augmentees from the Royal Air Force who will deploy with the CSG next time, my advice would be definitely speak to somebody who's done it before. You can make life significantly more comfortable by packing well. So definitely reach out to those of us who've been there and done it. And embrace it, look forward to it, plan your port stops, plan what you want to see, and enjoy the experience of embarked aviation and transiting the globe. Claire, do you have any advice from what you've seen?
So my main takeaways really are: don't call the ship a boat, the room is not a room, it's a cabin, the walls are bulkheads, the floor is a deck, and corridors are flats. But in all honesty, well, that is honesty. Yep, that's naval speak. But do your pre-deployment phys. Those ladders are steep and they come thick and fast on a daily basis. So you all come away with good quads and good glutes, which every good physio loves to see. And magnets. Don't forget magnets if you come away on a ship. Everything is metal, and magnets are an absolute dream. So, yeah, my takeaways.
So I've got CAG with me now. So would you like to introduce yourself and your role on the carrier?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon. Captain James Blackmore. I'm the Carrier Air Wing and Strike Warfare Commander. What does that mean? It means I'm basically in charge of all the aircraft, jets and helicopters within the strike group, both in Queen Elizabeth and all of our escorts, and also charged, by the Commodore, asked to deliver all the strike warfare effect that's required of a carrier strike group.
Sir, can I just ask what the Carrier Strike Group is and what it's been doing over the past 7 months?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Carrier Strike Group is largely it's Defence's commitment to being able to deliver a Carrier Strike Group capability globally. What does that mean? It's centred around the Queen Elizabeth class aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth in that case, which is our very high readiness aircraft carrier of the two we have. Accompanied by her escorts of frigates, destroyers, solid support ships and oilers, and then from my perspective, crucially, the aircraft that come with that as well and form the Carrier Strike Group. This deployment, FORTIS, or CSG 21 as it's been colloquially known as well, encompasses 18 F-35s, 10 from the United States Marine Corps and 8 from the UK Lightning Force. Perhaps we'll touch on a bit more of that in a minute, as well as Merlin helicopters from 820 Naval Air Squadron, both in the maritime patrol helicopter role for anti-submarine warfare, and also the ASAC, the new crow's nest capability, which gives us our airborne surveillance and control and command and control capability. As well as that, we've also got Merlin 4s in RFA Fort Victoria that deliver our Commando Merlin capability, both delivering Royal Marines ashore, but also it's our way of getting stores on board and throughout the strike group. And then finally the Wildcats, which are in our frigates and destroyers, which give us a surface, maritime surface strike capability. So you bring all that together, and that's 10 ships, one of which is a submarine. It's 32 aircraft. It's a command and control platform, and it's all that warfighting effect that we can manoeuvre at up to 500 miles a day. And as we've seen through this deployment, we've taken it from the Atlantic to the Far East, as far as 145 degrees east to the second island chain in the Pacific, via Japan, South Korea, the South China Sea, the Indian Ocean, and the Mediterranean. Both supporting operations globally, whether that was Operation Shader or operations in the Black Sea or over the Black Sea, all the way to the Pacific, where we integrate with our partners and allies, specifically the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps. 8-month deployment. It's been a long time. It's been the biggest global deployment the Royal Navy's done for decades, and the largest embarkation of aircraft that we've put to sea probably since the Falklands War in '82.
So, sir, can I ask, what's it been like having RAF personnel on board a Royal Navy ship for so long?
The bottom line is it's been fantastic, and that's I'm not saying that because of the podcast we're on. This has been a decade in conception. It falls on the back of what was Joint Force Harrier. It's now the Lightning Force. We don't even use the word joint in the title. There's no need to. It's an amalgamation of the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy working seamlessly together within the Lightning Force to deliver F-35 capability. And I don't say that lightly. There is, to me, no difference between a squadron leader or a lieutenant commander, an SAC or an AET, and all the ranks and rates in between. It's a group of people who come together to seamlessly integrate into the carrier and the carrier strike group to deliver all the warfighting effect that Lightning brings. I see no difference. The only difference I see is literally the rank and rate that's on someone's shoulder. Other than that, it's the best of both services working together, and the sum of the two parts is greater than the individual halves. So it's been nothing but a positive news story.
So what would you say the benefits are of having this integrated approach to military aviation, and how would you like that to develop over the coming years and decades?
For me, it's about efficiency and doing what's right within defence. We have a finite pool of aircraft and people at this stage of the programme. For me, the only way to deliver this is in the joint construct we just talked about. How would I like to see it develop in the future? To be honest, I just want to see it grow based on the lessons and everything we've experienced, all the good news we've experienced during this deployment, for the two services to keep driving it forward together on behalf of defence. And actually, I think other nations are now looking at us, and I think we'll become a role model for how other nations that are keen to integrate carrier-borne aviation between two services will look at us as a model of both efficiency and best practice going forward. So it's building on what we've done for me, and it's just keep driving that forward for the best interests of defence.
So can I ask if you have a message at all for the RAF personnel who have served with the CSG?
It's nothing other than a huge thank you and a massive well done. We didn't really touch on some of the cultural differences because I noted there weren't really any, but I do absolutely recognise that deploying for 8 months in a ship away from the UK for an extended period of time, particularly under the banner of COVID-19 global pandemic, has made this challenging. It's made it challenging regardless of the uniform you wear. But it's a different environment. If you've not been brought up in the Royal Navy to serve in ships, it's something very, very new. However, the Royal Air Force personnel on board have been absolutely exemplary in what they've delivered. Operational output over 8 months. There's some absolute highlights. Op Shader, I think, will probably be the pinnacle in there of where we delivered continuous air cover to Op Shader. So for me, it's a massive thank you. It's a huge well done. This is a programme that's come together rapidly over the last few years. It's only just achieved an initial operating capability, and here we are globally deployed, projecting air power 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most hostile environments you can operate in the maritime, day, night, all weathers, and the team have done brilliantly. As I said, Navy and Air Force, but recognising some of those extra challenges that come because it is different. But I think people will go away, and I hope they go away enthused by what they've done and look forward to doing it all again.
But there were not just celebrations in Portsmouth. Ahead of the carrier's arrival, Wing Commander Dylan Eckland went to RAF Marham to see how they were preparing for the homecoming.
So I am the wife of a contractor working on board HMS Queen Elizabeth, who has been on board since they set sail in April this year. He is a technician supporting the F-35 Lightning Force at RAF Marham.
Okay, and from your perspective, tell me a little bit about how it's been for you.
So it's been a very long 8 months. I have a 6-year-old boy. He was 5 when his dad left, and it's been quite difficult at times dealing with his emotions, my emotions, full-time working, school, COVID isolation. It's been, quite a difficult year, but we're really looking forward to having him home now.
What are your emotions now on the arrival, and what have you got planned for Christmas?
So we are very excited because we're only a couple of days out now of him coming home. We have got plans to go and see our family at Christmas. He hasn't seen his dad since Christmas 2019 because of all of the COVID isolations beforehand. So we've got pantomimes, we've got to go and see Santa Claus with our son, and he's got to catch up on all the things, not least 3 of his teeth falling out in the last few weeks.
And do you have a sense of pride about the contribution he's made?
So we're really proud of him. So the fact that he's gone out there as a civilian contractor, he's done the whole stint on board, seen some elements of the world, not quite as much as he expected to maybe when they first set sail, but to know that he's gone on there from the beginning, he's leaving at the end, and we'll be there to welcome him home. That's great for us.
I'm Group Captain Phil Marr, Station Commander of RAF Marham, home of the UK Lightning Force. This is a big day today. We've got the homecoming of the remaining jets off the aircraft carrier, HMS Queen Elizabeth. The station has been extremely quiet with them away, and 7.5 months is an extremely long time to be away from here.
So, from your own experience as from the Tornado Force, what sort of emotions do you have when you're returning from a long detachment?
The longest time I've been away is probably 3 or 4 months with the Tornado Force, 6 months for the headquarters tour. But to be away for 7.5 months, that's an additional, an immense strain on families. So I think there'll be mixed emotions from excitement through to just general. I'm sure they'll be very tired as well. And knowing that you're going to step off the bus and there'll be cameras, but all you really want to do is see your family and get in the car and get home and just re-establish those bonds that have been so stretched for such a long time. How does the station support families during the absence of the personnel? Well, we're very lucky at Marham because we have a very well-found community support team who really go above and beyond. So there have been so many events that have been created, visits, trips, we call them deployed family teas, welfare boxes are sent out because the families are actually spread far and wide, and because we're a joint RAF Navy station, we've got families as far away as Portsmouth, so trying to reach out to everybody virtually via post and for those in person where we can. It's really important, but I've been so impressed and I'm very pleased. What's the significance of CSG for the development of Lightning? So this is the first time we have deployed globally, and a long time since we had the previous aircraft carriers and the Joint Harrier Force. So this has been a huge moment, and to travel as far as they've travelled from the Atlantic all the way through to the Pacific, in line with the government's shift to the Indo-Pacific and the 14 nations we've engaged with, the 17 nations that we've trained closely with, it's a huge moment. So that the development of those relationships that we haven't had the opportunity to do for such a long time, promoting global peace and security, has been brilliant. And I think the reaction from the team away has been really positive too. As Station Commander Marham, I'd love to thank the families from the bottom of my heart for enduring this and for the support they've given to the station and those deployed. And I wish them all a very happy Christmas and a very well-earned rest.
This is Reheat on Inside Air. I'm SAC Victoria Andrews. Speaking to the whole force at a virtual dial-in, the Chief of the Air Staff, Air Chief Marshal Sir Mike Wigston, said how the RAF was an organisation which never shies away from modernisation. Having consulted internal and external parties, a decision has been made that the term airman will no longer be used. The Chief of the Air Staff explains.
Nearly 25% of our recruit intake will be women this year, and calling everyone airman does not reflect the modern, inclusive Royal Air Force we must be. So we are going to stop calling ourselves airmen. We're going to call ourselves aviators. Our business is aviation. The Army has soldiers, the Navy has sailors, and the Royal Air Force has aviators.
A Voyager has taken part in one of the most challenging flying training courses in NATO. The 3-week Tactical Leadership Programme is a long-running initiative to improve the interoperability and effectiveness of Allied air forces. In practical terms, personnel are instructed on the planning, briefing and execution of tactical air operations. Staying with flying programmes now, and 12 Squadron are in Qatar for exercise Fox Defender. Personnel from the RAF and Qatar Emiri Air Force will work side by side in a joint training exercise. The pilots will be challenged to a range of air-to-air and ground-to-air training serials. It marks 50 years of official diplomatic relations between the UK and Qatar. And finally, for 12 months, a special project has been in development by the RAF Esports Association, allowing them to develop their coding skills. Project Flying Fox is a website which is currently in countdown mode to Christmas Eve. View it at flying-fox.net. But from the 24th of December, Christmas Eve, it will allow children to see Santa's progress as he travels from the Arctic and across the world. The team of J-Hub coders from across the 3 services have plans for more bells and whistles when version 2 goes live next Christmas. That's Reheat on Inside Air.
I'm SAC Simon Ross with this episode's Name That Noise. That was the sound of a simulated close-quarter battle. The RAF Force Protection Centre, or FPC, at RAF Honington continues to deliver a training course which prepares RAF personnel deploying to high-threat locations around the world. In 2020, 156 RAF personnel were trained to meet the RAF's essential commitments to 4 different operations globally. In this scenario, the Global High Threats Pre-Deployment Training uses simulated paintball-tipped ammunition, along with live enemy role players in the Close Quarter Battle Training Facility. The aim is to practice the firer in engaging targets at differing ranges from alternate pieces of cover.
That's all for this episode of Inside Air. Please give us a review and subscribe on your favourite podcast app, and join us again soon.
You've been listening to Inside Air, a behind-the-wire view of the Royal Air Force, its people, technology and operations. If you're serving in the RAF and have a story for us, please speak to your unit media and communications officer. Inside Air is written and produced for the Royal Air Force by RAF Media Reserves.